With Bitcoin's recent rally from down here at this low point all the way up to this high point here, what does this mean for VeChain? And we are expecting Bitcoin dominance to actually rise up towards that 50%. We could start seeing some problems with VeChain at some key levels. So today, guys, we're going to be taking another cheeky look at VeChain, and we'll be specifically looking at the price action of the VET token. We're taking a look at the charts. We'll be having a look at Bitcoin's chart. We're having a look at the VeChain chart, Bitcoin's dominance chart. We'll also be jumping into 𝗖𝗢 to see exactly what is going on with VeChain's ratings as well. I believe there are a few issues in terms of liquidity, so we'll be taking a look at a few of those things as well. And guys, if you do find this video useful and informative, hit that like button. We both really do appreciate it. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel and you would like to stay up to date with all those new cryptocurrencies, the hidden gems, the technical analysis and news, then do go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. It is free, you'll stay well informed, so why not? And Chris, is there anything else that you would like to add before we jump on down to the desktop, get into these charts and talk everything VeChain?
The only thing I'm going to say, Nick, is yeah, things are going to get very interesting. So yeah,
fantastic. All right, let's jump on down and get right on into it.
let's do it.
Okay, guys, with Bitcoin's recent rally from down here at this low point all the way up to this high point here, what does this mean for VeChain? VeChain obviously has been reacting to the market as a whole, and obviously Bitcoin is leading this front. Right now, obviously, we can see that Bitcoin has reached this upper area of resistance right now, and ultimately this will have an impact on how far VeChain is likely to go in the coming days ahead. Now, obviously, with Bitcoin rallying all the way from this low point here on the 8th of June through to where it is today, and the high of today being the 10th of June. This is a pretty phenomenal move, and something that we were talking about quite recently on our live streams, how we were going to move from that lower area, that lower band of 31,000 for Bitcoin through to about 38,000. Now, again, we saw this happen here, and my expectations are that we will have this pullback in the terms of Bitcoin. And obviously, this does relate to all altcoins, including VeChain. So what we're going to do is also just jump into Bitcoin's dominance here, and we are expecting Bitcoin dominance to actually rise up towards that 50% area there. And once we're up here, we are expecting this thing to get some sideways traction before potentially moving a little bit higher before those altcoins really do go parabolic, bringing Bitcoin's dominance down to those lower areas. And again, if we take a look at what happened previously in the 2017-2018 bull run, we actually brought Bitcoin's dominance down to 37. We had the rally pushing it up towards 50%, slight pullback before reaching almost up to 70% for Bitcoin's dominance. And it was at this point that those altcoins truly went parabolic, bringing Bitcoin's dominance down to about 32%. Now, we're not going to have it exactly the same. It's not going to be a like-for-like scenario, bull run on bull run, but this gives us a bit of a flavor and a bit of an idea of what generally happens during a bull run. Obviously, we've got a lot more cryptocurrencies this time around than we did have back in 2017, so there's lots of additional variables that we do have to consider. We cannot just look at 2013 when there were hardly any cryptocurrencies in the market, and Bitcoin had the majority of the market, right? So it's really hard to look and see what was going on there. But what we can do is take a look where there were a serious number of competitors in terms of cryptocurrencies, and we can see what happened to Bitcoin's dominance. And again, we'll expect to have something relatively similar happening here, albeit I do not expect it to go all the way up towards 67%. I expect it to fall short of that. So again, we are expecting Bitcoin's dominance to head up towards that 50% area. Now, this is also really crucially important when we start thinking about where Bitcoin is right now and how it continues to have a bit of a rally to the upside, and whether it has a pullback, and ultimately what this means for altcoins, because money will roll out of altcoins faster than it rolls out of Bitcoin, and ultimately as a result of this, Bitcoin's dominance reacts accordingly. So ultimately Bitcoin's dominance actually increases even while Bitcoin is decreasing in value, and this is just sheerly the number of the value of cryptocurrencies, or the money rolling out of those cryptocurrencies into something like USDT, or even into Bitcoin itself as a bit of a hedge, or completely removed from the market altogether, waiting for better entry points. So what you end up with is Bitcoin's dominance naturally rising a little bit here during this kind of volatile moment. Now, let's get into the dashboard for 𝗖𝗢, and we'll take a look at VeChain specifically. So we're going to jump into the VeChain chart, and we're just going to close off those factors. We've already got those loaded. So obviously we can have a look at the VeChain chart here directly in the 𝗕𝗑𝗪 platform, which is a pretty handy tool. So if you're using TradingView, you can get access to it here as well, which is cool. But we're going to really be focusing in on what's going on with these additional factors when it comes to VeChain. So right now we're just going to focus in here on VeChain's fear and greed index. Now for VeChain, that fear and greed index is unfortunately suffering a bit. It's actually rated at a grade D right now, and even the 𝗕𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 ratio. Now for those people who have been following what's been going on in the crypto space recently, we obviously have Binance potentially causing a few liquidity issues with withdrawals and things like that, and ultimately VeChain here also has a bit of an issue with liquidity. Is strangely lower than it would be normally expected, ultimately at about a C2 rating. So not the worst, but definitely not the best by any stretch of the imagination. So we obviously have a lot of fear in the space, we have liquidity related issues, and also we can see that there's a risk to the rewards here in terms of our Sharpe ratio as well. We just zoom in here, we can see this is also a grade D, and grade D being for your Sharpe ratio is usually driven because you have a lot of fear in the space, and obviously if you have liquidity issues, these things do compound the issue altogether. But when we take a look at that return on investment, we can see that actually it was performing the best that it can. 𝗕𝗪𝗠𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦's artificial intelligence has actually pulled this one out as an A1 rating, which is fantastic for VeChain. So despite the fact that it's got a lot of fear at the moment in the space, and it's got potentially liquidity issues and issues related to the risk to reward, the profitability here is still up there as an A1 rating. So it's definitely looking pretty good from a profitability point of view at this point in time. Now what we're going to do is just jump down again into our trading view. This is obviously Bitcoin, but let's go ahead and actually pull this up and take a look at VeChain to the USDT. Now, what I'm going to do is just zoom on out here a little bit, so we get a bit of an idea as to what exactly is going on when it comes to VeChain. Now, what we're going to do is just start this off with a daily chart, to give you that bigger macro picture as to what is exactly going on when it comes to VeChain. We can obviously see that back in March of 2021, really kick-started the bull run. We can see that the wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and potentially wave 5, where we're heading and going further forward in this particular bull run of 2021-2022. Again, time's the hardest thing to gauge. We do not know if it's going to end, in December, or whether it's going to be a March finish for this particular bull run. So, I do have to say that we have to be a bit patient here. We're about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than that. So we're just going to be playing this one out, playing it nice and cool, dollar cost averaging in during the majority of these dips. I believe we've actually had the majority of the dips that we would consider kind of dollar cost averaging in ahead of this wave 5. So this is looking pretty standard. We obviously have a flat wave 2, sharp wave 4, pretty standard stuff. Wave 4 is usually 40% of your wave 3, and in this case it's approximately a little bit above that, but it's pretty much exactly where you would expect it to be in this particular scenario. So from this macro point of view, VeChain's actually looking pretty tidy. Let's actually dive down into that hourly view, and we'll take a look and see what's been going on most recently, because ultimately we could start seeing some problems with VeChain at some key levels. So right now we obviously have a good area here, which actually is potentially forming a good strong area of support. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly mark this up with a horizontal ray. So we're just going to grab this and we're going to throw this right where we are right now. And the reason that I'm marking this here is we can see that this is the upper area here where we found resistance previously. We had that breakthrough event where we actually pushed above this, and then we're having this pullback right now. I'll zoom in so you guys can get a bit of a clearer picture as to what I'm talking about here. We can see this resistance line here, and we can see this was major resistance really pushing through was a struggle. We've pushed through, and now what we want to do is actually turn this and confirm this as an area of support. With this being said, if we zoom out and we just push this down a tad, we can also see a bit of a decline actually forming here when it comes to VeChain. So another key area that we want to be watching out for in terms of VeChain is watching out for these key trend lines that are starting to appear. So we do have a trend line that's in a declining motion just forming here on these key levels. And again, if we actually pull this up from an upward trend perspective, we also have an upward trend starting to form now as well. So again, these two things are going to intersect around the 11th of June, which would put this about tomorrow, about 10 a.m. in the morning. So again, we'll understand at that point which one of these particular lines is going to be stronger than the other. Okay, one trend line is going to outperform the other, and this will dictate where VeChain goes going forward. Of course, all of this can be well and good, right? But unfortunately, a lot of these trend lines are quite weak. They're not the strongest trend lines, and they're the easiest thing, unfortunately, to draw in a chart. So people tend to rely on them quite well. With that being said, they usually get invalidated very, very easily. So it's important to understand that whatever Bitcoin does, ultimately VeChain will follow. And with Bitcoin being where it is right now, let's pull up Bitcoin here, we can see Bitcoin has reached this upper area of resistance. Right now, my expectations are that Bitcoin will slowly pull back a tiny bit whilst we correct that relative strength index. Here you can obviously see for Bitcoin that the relative strength index has gone from oversold to overbought in this motion from this low area through to this high area now. So ultimately, we're really high on that relative strength index, which is indicating to everyone who's watching this video and traders alike that ultimately we are expecting a bit of a pullback with Bitcoin. Now, of course, you can go into overbought and you can stay up in overbought area, but you couple the fact that we are reaching this resistance line, the previous resistance line that we've been over here for quite some time. We can see this is an upper area of resistance for Bitcoin. The expectations are that we will have a pullback. Well, how far will we pull back to? This is going to be up for speculation, but I can see about 37,000 is a good key area. We can also see down here, going and dropping down a little bit further, this 200 moving average is also a pretty good area to be looking out for as well. So I think there's a lot to play for. We'll have to obviously monitor the situation for Bitcoin, how far it does actually have to have a pullback before potentially going up and piercing this resistance line here before heading up to that 40K area. So again, lots of people were wrecked with Bitcoin recently in terms of what's been going on with shorting, short attacks were going on just a couple of days prior to this particular motion to the downside. And if people were expecting Bitcoin to go down to 20K and then got this instant reversal, pushing it right away back up towards this area here, lots of people were wiped out through shorting and leverage, or just doing shorts in general. Then ultimately, I think you're potentially did a lot of harm here. But again, this could both be a bull and a bear trap in the same scenario. I do find that this is being heavily manipulated between two key areas, and it's trapping both the bulls and the bears. There definitely seems to be two camps here when it comes to Bitcoin. And this is really important when we start talking about VeChain again, because whatever Bitcoin does, VeChain will unfortunately follow. So if Bitcoin is likely to have a pullback, then we are expecting that VeChain will have a pullback as well, which would ultimately mean that this upward trend line that we just drew here is not actually on the right area, and we actually might want to pull back a little bit further. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is actually grab a horizontal line again, this horizontal ray, and actually say that we are most likely going to be looking at this area here, which comes in at about 11.2 cent. If Bitcoin had a small pullback, not by too much, but a small pullback, then I can see VeChain pulling back to about 11.2 cent from the current 11.5. This is important because actually this will take us down to our relative strength index of 37.41, which would actually be a good key area that we've bounced from prior, right? This is a good key strong area for VeChain, and we could start to see some good strong growth from there. So if Bitcoin had a small pullback and then push ahead, VeChain would do the same. The pullback would go to about 11.2 cent in my opinion, and before having a proper surge going up again, reaching this upper area here of about 12.7, which is another area of major resistance where it's been forming previously. So there's some key areas here for VeChain that absolutely have to be taken note of. These are, of course, that area I just mentioned of 12.7 cent. And of course, if we're going to be pulling back, if Bitcoin also does the same thing, then 11.5 could potentially become 11.2 very, very quickly. And it even potentially could fall lower than this. And we'll see I've got a few key areas down here with the lower one looking at about 10.5 as well. So we ought to be paying attention to what happens with Bitcoin, because VeChain will be following. And VeChain definitely seems to have a lot going for it in the short term as well as the long term. So right now, there's some good key areas that we've established, and we want to be making sure that we follow those all the way through to make sure that we have the maximum potential here achieved for VeChain. Now, what I'm going to do is actually pull this back up into our daily view, just pull this down a little bit and talk about what it looks like when we actually go up towards that wave 5, right? So where does this thing actually peak out for? So ultimately, VeChain has such potential from a fundamental point of view, and we've spoken about this many times on many different videos. So if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed and go check out those videos on VeChain, because we talk about all the partnerships, all those fundamentals, which are absolutely key to driving adoption when it comes to VeChain. Now, in terms of the technical side here, what we can do is actually grab this extension or Fibonacci retracement tool, placed it on top of that high over here. And this actually shows you the extension coming in at $1.02. So $1.02 here is the kind of theoretical top level here for VeChain based on the technical data that we currently have. This kind of coincides with where I've kind of placed our wave 5 top. Okay, so my expectations are that once we get through the correction stage here for wave 4 and we go into, truly peaking, the Bitcoin bull run, and therefore the alt season really kickstarting and the alts going parabolic, VeChain would go up to this kind of dollar level here. It could of course extend above and beyond this with some new additional partnerships and adoption within the actual world and some very strong fundamentals, but for now the technicals are saying we should be looking at about a dollar level here for VeChain, which is a fantastic news considering where we are right now at about 11.5 cents. So just short of a 10x you're during this 5 or 5th wave for VeChain. So lots going on in the space. And I think this is some fantastic stuff going on in general in many of these cryptocurrencies. But unfortunately, they are currently following Bitcoin. And as long as you hodl and you do not sell, you won't make a loss, in my opinion. I don't think we're going in the bear market. I'm not a financial advisor. Chris is not a financial advisor. But I am pretty confident on just hodling my position of VeChain and riding this up that 5th wave to about a dollar level or so. And again, when we have that bear market, we'll be dollar cost averaging in again to VeChain, moving into the 2025 bull run as well. So lots going on. And Chris, is there anything else that you want to add on this VeChain aspect?
Just, there's an awful lot of FUD in the space, and the reason for this is you've got people from more mainstream markets that are now dabbling in cryptocurrency markets. And, for me, they're not the same. And you've got to look at the size of the market. It's volatile because of the size of the market. We've got big players coming into the space now, with institutional money. You've got potentially Apple sort of getting involved in blockchain. You've got Amazon also potentially getting involved in cryptocurrency. PayPal allowing people to move their money on and off ramp for their platform. There's lots of really positive stuff going on in the space, and I expect some serious price discovery during 2021. And I don't see this as a bear market like some people are saying. I think it's very misleading to be saying that. There's various different metrics that back up what we're saying here, and you've got to make a decision, right? You look at the market and have your opinion, and let us know what you think in the comments. Really interested to get a flavor for what people's opinions are.
Absolutely, guys. Let us know in the comments below. Are we going bull or are we going bear? And what are your price expectations for VeChain? Really interested to know that. And guys, if you found this useful, informative, hit that like button. We both really do appreciate that. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel and you'd like to stay up to date with the new cryptocurrencies, the hidden gems, the technical analysis and news, then why not subscribe? By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. It is free. You'll stay well informed. So why not? With that said, done and out of the way, guys, we hope you have a fantastic day and we'll catch you all in the next one.
Yeah, take care.